As a longtime fan of the Tempest franchise, you better believe that I'm excited every time LllamaSoft releases a new game. And when you tell me that their upcoming title is a reimagining of a 1982 arcade game that was never released, I say sign me up, sight unseen. And that's exactly what happened with Akka Arrh, a fun and sometimes baffling shoot-'em-up that has been resuscitated 41 years after Atari unfairly decided to take it off of life support. Without watching any of the trailers and barely playing the original, I jumped into this new version of the game with the hopes that it would be the year's first must-own shooter. What I got was something a lot more complicated. Trust me, we have a lot to talk about in this review of Akka Arrh. If you took my advice and bought the incredible compilation Atari 50, the anniversary celebration, then you may have run into Akka Arrh when going through the company's extensive history of arcade games. Wedged between Quantum and Black Widow, we're told that this weirdly titled shooter was developed by Dave Ralston and Mike Hawley in 1982, but ultimately went unreleased after the test markets deemed the game to be too difficult. It's easy to understand where those unsuspecting gamers in that test market were coming from when you play the new version of Akka Arrh. No matter where you come down on this remake, one thing is painfully clear. This is not a straightforward shoot-'em-up. I fully sympathize with those gamers from 40 years ago because I spent an embarrassing amount of time trying to wrap my head around what at first looks like a relatively simple action game. Well, let me tell you, this shooter is not as simple as it looks. The first thing that you need to know about Akka Arrh is that it's a strange mashup of Missile Command and a tower defense game. You play a single turret that sits in the middle of the stage and can spin around in 360 degrees, allowing you to kill enemies that are attacking from all sides. The turret is equipped with two different weapons, both bombs and regular bullets. The trick is that you'll need to kill enemies with the bombs in order to use your gun, as each enemy that you kill will generate one bullet that you can use. With very limited bullets at your disposal, you have to think carefully about how you're going to use both the bombs and the regular gun, as it's extremely easy to get into a situation where you just run out of ammo and are completely vulnerable to attack. Now this is where the game becomes a lot more complicated. When an enemy rushes the turret in the middle, it will usually fly down to a lower layer of the stage and try to destroy the 16 pods floating around the stage. These pods represent the player's life. When a bad guy goes down to this lower layer, you're going to need to follow them down there and kill them before they get your pods. Of course, when you're down in that lower layer, you're completely ignoring the action that's happening above, which has a real tendency of getting out of hand in unpredictable ways. The object is to find a balance between the two layers, all while racking up a high score with impressive combos. The scoring system is easily the coolest new aspect of this Akka Arrh remake. When you drop a bomb, it creates a ripple effect that will kill the enemies in its wake. What's cool is that each enemy will expand the reach of that bomb, creating new ripples that will hopefully keep the combo going for minutes at a time. Now, you can always drop another bomb if you want to get those ripples moving again, but that'll reset the combo back to 1. The good news is that firing the gun will not reset the combo, but again, you're limited to how many bullets you can shoot. This somewhat complicated dynamic leads to the game's greatest asset, a wide range of incredible enemies that you're going to need to learn and memorize. There's a real strategy element to Akka Arrh's actions, and you're going to need to prioritize what enemies you target and when. You may want to bomb those easy enemies first to build up your gun ammo, and then you can focus on the faster aliens that will seemingly come out of nowhere. Some enemies can only be destroyed by using the gun bullets, while others will launch countermeasures the moment they're shot down. Similarly, the various types of aliens will attack the pods in a bunch of different ways, while some staying down below as long as they can, while others will stay above and try to suck them up before they get caught. I really appreciated how each stage was good about introducing a new enemy or a new obstacle. There's a lot more variety here than you get in most classic shoot-'em-ups. So when I lay it out like that, Akka Arrh makes complete sense. Sure, it's a little bit more complicated than a typical old-school shooter, what with the different layers and the way your ammo works, but a seasoned developer like LllamaSoft should have no problem teaching new players what to do, right? Unfortunately, that is not the case. Perhaps I'm a little slow, but it took me more than a few tries before I started to get the hang of what was expected of me. Part of the problem is that the instructions aren't as clear as they probably could have been. It's also annoying that they obnoxiously flash the information on screen in different colors while you're in the middle of a fight. If ever there was a game that just needed a full card explanation of the rules, this is the game. Gradually, over the course of many games, I began to wrap my head around the different ammo types and all of the different aliens. But even as it started to seep into my thick head, I still had so many questions. I'm not gonna lie, I spent quite a while not really enjoying Akka Arrh. I was frustrated that I couldn't freely move around the field and was annoyed that a strategy that worked in one stage wouldn't work in the next. Even the power-ups left me cold, as it's not always clear what they're supposed to do. I found that I kept wanting to play the game one way, when it was clear that the game wanted to be played in a completely different way. And then something just clicked. I started prioritizing enemies and learning their attacks. I got better at predicting the cheap hits and creating massive combos that rejuvenated my pods. Long story short, I started to have fun. And despite being incredibly challenging at times, I kept having fun as I puzzled my way through levels that kept coming in all shapes and sizes. That's not to say that I fully embraced all of the strange design decisions. I still have big problems with the way the two layers are handled, since it's often incredibly hard to see what's going on below the main stage. I wish there was a better alert or a better way of dealing with the threat in the pod level. I also wish the game was a bit clearer when it came to how to play the game and what the different power-ups do. So much of this game left me scratching my head, and not always in a good way. Now, like most LllamaSoft games, I would describe the visual style as chaotic. There are enemies, bullets, particles, power-ups, and even words flying everywhere. This is one of the big reasons why it's sometimes difficult to see what's happening below the surface. While I'll admit that it can be a bit much to look at times, I actually like the way the game looks. It perfectly rides that line between looking like an old-school arcade game and using the modern hardware to create levels and effects that would just have been impossible back in 1982. The soundtrack is also good, though it's definitely a lot more laid back than I was expecting. This is a good-looking and sounding package, assuming that absolute chaos is your thing. Look, it may have taken a while, but I ultimately came to like Akka Arrh. It's not my favorite LllamaSoft game, and is probably a bit more complicated than it needed to be, but I like a lot of the ideas that are at play here. This is a shooter that requires a lot more strategy and forethought than we normally get, and I appreciate the game's ambitions, even if they don't always come together. This is a fun and worthwhile game, though it may take a little while to warm up to its many quirks. After being unceremoniously dropped by Atari 4 decades ago, LllamaSoft gives Akka Arrh a real chance at shoot-'em-up success. Fast and chaotic, this action game is a mix of missile command and tower defense, but that doesn't even begin to describe what makes this remake so unique. Unfortunately, the frustrating instructions and weird gameplay quirks threaten to ruin a lot of the fun, but those who stick with the game will be rewarded with a truly unique shooter full of rich ideas and strategy. Akka Arrh is a remake that absolutely needed to happen. Hey, thanks for watching our review. If you liked what you saw here, then you should know that we post new reviews and features almost every day. Now, here's the question I have for you. What unreleased game is in most need of a remake? Oh boy, there are so many good ones that you can go with here. I mean, there's StarCraft Ghost, or Mega Man Legend 3, or that Agent game from Rockstar, Silent Hills, and so many more. Let me see your picks in the comments below. In other news, we'll be back later this week with a review of Hitman, Loud, Rise of Fox Hero, and more. While you wait for that, I strongly recommend you click that subscribe button and support what we're doing here. Until then.